Hello, I'm Les Bennett, and I'm with the American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists. And it is my pleasure to host this series of interviews with individuals who are recognized for their innovations and contributions to the pharmaceutical sciences. Speaking on behalf of the association, it is our goal to develop a series of videotapes in which we invite outstanding, eminent pharmaceutical scientists to discuss their points of view on the events, issues, and challenges that have shaped the direction of the pharmaceutical sciences. We will also explore their perspectives and where the pharmaceutical sciences are going. Today, it is our pleasure to have the opportunity to visit with Professor Jessie of the Ohio State University. Thank you, Jessie, for joining us today. Why don't we start with what was the motivation for you to become a pharmaceutical scientist, and what were the influences that led you to that?
Well, there are many factors. The first one being I always wanted to be a scientist. I like asking questions. What if, why, and so forth. And then the second factor is I was trained as a pharmacist. That's my first degree, the PharmD from UCSF. And I worked a few years as a pharmacist, and all the time I found myself asking, why don't I ask this question? Why is someone not asking this question? So clearly, in order to do something about it, is to follow that path. So I went back to graduate school and never looked back.
Good. So you've made very significant and important contributions in cancer chemotherapy. Why don't you give us a perspective of why you moved into that field and where you actually see it going today?
I started this in '75, so that's 33 years now. At that time, cancer really wasn't on the radar screen for most scientists or even in drug industry. It was one of the orphan area. And I thought that was one of the most interesting areas for me. And also I was actually touched by an experience when I was doing the pharmacy internship. My last rotation was on the cancer ward in the hospital. And I befriended a woman patient, and we had a rapport going. And one day I came in and she was gone. It was Sunday morning at 6 o'clock, and her bed was empty. And then it dawned on me she just died, just like that. The day before she was fine. So I thought, well, cancer is an area that I could spend time on. And so that's where I went.
Can you give us some perspective of, over those 30 years, what we've accomplished and why you think we have been making these progress?
Oh, really nicely. I think to begin with, we had a lot of chemists working on compounds. The most famous example is Charlie Heidelberger finding this structural analog of uracil and making 5-fluorouracil. That was the first success story, how we target a particular cellular pathway. In this case, it was DNA synthesis. So that was the first impact on cancer chemotherapy. And over the years, things really changed. We started with non-discrete type of drug that hit every growing cells. I mean, that was the very first entry into cancer chemotherapy, was recognizing the rapidly growing cells, so we targeted DNA damage, replication. And then we moved away a bit in the last 30 years. I think we got more into wanting to avoid the side effects, because first we made some inroad in improving responses, and then we asked how can we make it better. So we started focusing more on the quality of life, and that's where you start seeing this molecular targeted therapy. Now, of course, one will argue every drug is molecular targeted, so just which target are you choosing? But I think what you're seeing now is much more the results from knowledge gained in the area of cellular level and molecular level, and try to make it into therapy. So I think that's really exciting in that standpoint. We moved quite a few levels in trying to target this horrible disease.
Right. Did you think there were particular roadblocks that you faced as an individual versus the field that sort of you had to overcome and really were challenges for you?
When I think about my work and what I've accomplished, I see in two categories. with respect to science, I think probably the most important thing we have done is to show the path, how one can integrate pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, so therefore the drug delivery, the biology, and the patient, and what are the things to think about. And by integrating that, we use computational modeling approach. So we reduce the biological problems into quantitative terms, where you can describe in equations, and by doing that, we're able to predict the outcome on the clinical trials. So we started this back in early 90s. I think we published a paper in 92. So we basically said we can use these equations and to predict the outcome. Now, of course, this is 16 years ago, so a lot of folks thought we were somewhat of a nutcase because you can't predict what happened in clinical situation. So we went ahead anyway, and we did that, and we were able to get a group of clinicians to work with us, and got NCI to fund the trial, and we basically took this concept and used the prediction and said, well, you know, if this is correct, we would have double the cure rate in bladder cancer by this treatment, from 20 to 40%. So the computer prediction is between 18 to 20% more cure. And based on that, we were able to predict how many patients we need. So we don't have unnecessary too large a trial. So we did the clinical trial. It took 6 years to get all the patients that we needed because the funding was very scarce. We were only paying $800 a patient when industry was paying like $8,000 a patient. But we got a trial done, and the outcome came out to be exactly 19%. So we predicted 18 or 20, depending what the patient would be like. So the trial outcome came out exactly on money. So that was, I think, the first trial. This is according to FDA, and they told us this is the first trial that's done using PK/PD and using computation to predict outcome and have the outcome right on money. So I think we basically showed it can be done. So I think from that standpoint, now, you know, this is a big thing for drug development. Everyone wants to use computation to predict outcome. So I think it's nice to have done that work to show that it's not just a pie in the sky, but can be done. Now we have since taken it to the next approach, that is more emphasis on biology. We're now more worried about the 60% of patients that are not getting cured. Why is it? And we ask, are we giving the drug incorrectly? Are we giving too much drug, too little drug? So we're taking that, but now we also worry about signaling pathways inside the cell. So this is the next project we're working on. We've been at it now for 10 years, and I think the verdict will come out 3 to 4 years from now. We just starting 2 large randomized clinical trial. And our prediction is we should be able to double the survival time in lung cancer patients. So we'll see whether we're right or wrong. So that's another way to look at it. So our first project is to primarily on drug delivery and using it to predict outcome. So next project is to using biology to predict outcome. So I think that is probably, from our perspective, the most important work we have done is integrating many disciplines, biology, delivery, that's mathematics, and clinical science, and show how we can do clinical trials efficiently and cost effectively. That's from the science standpoint. I think that's the major thing. Now, I think the other contribution I made is less obvious, but it's more on the culture in how biomedical sciences are done, especially in the clinical research arena. When I started my career, pharmacy has always been stepchild is a strong word, but for lack of a better word, it's a bit like off the side. Pharmaceutical scientists typically play a different role as the medical scientists. Folks in medical school typically are the drivers of clinical research. And I think what I've done there is basically gone up to them and say, look, that's not all we can do. Pharmacy faculty can do more than that. We're able to help you to do things that are not obviously apparent to the medical field. So I think there I changed the culture a bit by basically walk up to the medical folks and say, we level the playing field a little bit. You know, we're not just giving you service, but we actually can help you to drive the research. So I think that barrier has been broken. So I think in the cancer therapy area, anyway, that's the one that I worked on. So I think my contribution probably in those two areas are the one I'm most proud of.
Did the ability to go to the Ohio State University and to put those kinds of interactive forces together, was that, did that work for you, or was that hard to do, to accomplish?
At first it was really hard. And then I had good fortune to hook up with some people that are appreciative of what I could do and bring to the table. And so that helped tremendously. So I had a good 10 years running, I think, in the 90s. And was able to break a lot of barriers in terms of getting the folks in medical school to believe the pharmacy faculty actually could be on equal footing and can help them to solve problems that they cannot solve on their own. So I think those are the really a good thing for me there. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you been tempted? Well, let's get. I know you've been doing some entrepreneurial things lately. Why don't you tell us a little about that in terms of?
Oh, well, that's interesting because I have done some administration. For a few years, I was a deputy director of the cancer center, so I had a lot of responsibility overseeing programmatic growth and so forth. And out of that, I learned actually if I keep on doing what I do, it's only one person. But if I can come up with a structure that allows others to help, maybe we can make a bigger impact. Now, one thing's been on my mind for more than 10 years now is it's very hard for me to understand why the success rate for drug development is so low. I think that's a real problem, not just economically for drug company, but it's a problem that impacts globally. I mean, we all need support for healthcare. How do we handle that? So I've been looking at how can one change. So we have, what we have now is obviously not working. We already done decades of experiment. That's why we have 95% failure rate in cancer drug development. This is after a compound enter humans. The success rate is only 5%. So it doesn't make sense. It's not just limited by dollars because the companies are spending a lot of money on them, and yet they fail miserably. So how do you get past this? So looking at the structure that we have today, obviously it's not working well. So I've been thinking, how can we come up with maybe a new structure, at least explore it, do another experiment in that sense. So I've been looking at academic commercial partnership. I mean, I look at why things work and didn't work, and when it did not work, what could we have done better. So I came up with this idea, and I actually approached the administration in my university back in early 2000. But I failed to convince them that it may be workable. So a few years later, I went out, and some of my students, postdoctoral students and PhD students, so we started basically follow that path, and started a company that focused on taking discovery through phase 2. And we're hoping now, we started to gain traction. We're now in our 6th year, and we have multiple clinical stage compounds coming up within the next 12 months. Actually, one's already multiple phase 2 trials. So I think that, I see that as a way to show you can get it to work. You don't have to have academic being separate from the commercial side. If you can have a structure in between that allows us to number one, tap the scientific resources in the academic world. That goes not just in pharmacy, that goes all the way through medical, clinical researchers that love to work with folks like ourselves, the translational researchers. And at the same time be able to convince the commercial partners to provide some support, not a huge amount of support, but get it through the most difficult part in drug development, which is from the time you enter patients through phase 2, the first proof of concept. I think this is where most of the failures happen, and I think it happened because the way we run drug development now. So I'm hoping a structure like this where you have academic scientists and commercial partners that understand what the marketplace is and give you guidance through the regulatory processes. So I'm hoping something like this can work. So that's really what started us on this path into entrepreneurship.
Well, times change, and people influential such as you think if you came to the university today, they would partner with you?
I know that there are other universities said they like the idea, so it started to gain traction. So we'll see. And I think the next 5 years will be interesting. But we'll find out. It's an experiment.
Okay.
If the few compounds we're working on now succeed, then obviously the model works. If it's failed, then obviously the model doesn't work. But it's not a big gamble. It's only a small amount of money, relatively speaking. So we'll find out.
You've trained many students and postdocs. Yeah. Is this, are you up on the field? Is this something that you say, there's a bright future, pharmaceutical scientists? Is this something you feel good about?
That's a tough one. I think today, we're in a very tough economic climate. But if I look at where the society is going, we clearly need better health care. And I think with the focus on pharmaceutical companies, I think we have to be better in developing drugs. We have to turn the tide around. So from that standpoint, I think the discipline has a very bright future. But I also believe pharmaceutical scientists has a very, probably for the first time, has the most influential or potentially influential position in driving drug development. Because in NIH history for all these years, it's always basic science until a few years ago. Now, let's talk about applied science. So pharmaceutical scientists by nature are applied scientists. We're no longer the stepchild. We now should be in focus. So from that standpoint, I think, yes, I think the next decade will be a great time for pharmaceutical scientists.
You've been very influential, well recognized, got a lot of awards, well deserved. What do you think is, if you look at your own career, what do you think was the best thing you've done? I
think the best is yet to come. Let's just start off with that. But I think several things that I accomplished are not so obvious. When I went to Ohio State, the program was very strong in physical pharmacy. Rightfully so. That was the beginning of pharmaceutics. But we were changing to a more biologically oriented field. So I think what I'd done there was able to change the curriculum, change the direction of our own little department. The second thing I think I've done is broke the barrier between pharmacy and medicine. I mean, medicine always looked to pharmacy for service, at least in our institution. We were the one that do analysis for them. We're the one that, get PKs done for them. So basically I said, well, we can do a lot more than that. We can help you to design trials. We can think more critically. So I think that's the second breaking that barrier, to have pharmacy elevated in the way we interact with them. So we're much more level than when we were before. In terms of science, science, what we've done is discover a new way to give drugs in bladder cancer therapy. That's well recognized now, and it's adopted by the whole field in urology oncology. Another concept, we're in phase 2, we're not done, but the preliminary data looks very good, and that is to change the way we think about cancer chemotherapy. For a long time, we have always given drug to maximum tolerated dose, because the thinking is if you can kill the cancer without killing the patient, you do fine. But we have been taking a different path. We feel that may be not correct, because that's really the rules of man. That's not the rules of nature. And if we want to deal with cancer, we should think, how does nature think? So for a long time, we've been pushing this concept, and that's using drug at a very non-toxic dose, just enough to interfere with the molecular targets that we want, but not try to push it to the highest level. So this drug we're working on has been developed under that concept. in fact, it's drug that we save from the garbage can. It's a drug that was tossed away using the, when it was developed under the MTD paradigm. We now use, FDA rejected it, the company threw it away. We basically said, well, this drug actually had a lot of good things, you're just not using it right. So we took it back, and so we're pushing that. It's now, the preliminary data show that we can double survival in lung cancer. So we'll see if that pans out in the bigger scale trial.
Have you tried to concentrate in one particular cancer, or are you more a methodological person in terms of things that would apply across a lot of cancers?
Yeah, I think really problem solver. I think I'm more engineer in that sense. I see a problem and I go after it. So I'm always focused on solid tumors. I have not worked much with liquid tumor. The solid tumor, of course, is 85–90% of the cancer that we see in adults. But and every tumor is actually different. So treating bladder cancer, treating pancreatic cancer are different things. The plumbings are different. So we really have to look at it from that standpoint.
So during our careers, really pharmaceutical sciences has become a worldwide operation. And I'm sure many of your postdocs and maybe even students have come from around the world.
Yes.
And can you give us a perspective in terms of how that's going, where it's going? Is there are we doing the right things in terms of how we interact internationally? And
this really opens up a lot in the last decade. And it's very satisfying to see a lot of students we train, or I've trained, have gone on and returned to their home countries and follow, their path and build career for themselves. Clearly, we all leave an imprint on our student, good or bad. Hopefully more good than bad. So it's good to see that.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk a little bit about funding. I think you've been pretty successful, and it's an important aspect.
Yes.
Are you concerned with what's happening in terms of not just your own research, but the disciplines you're interested in? Are we at a danger zone that we need to worry in the future?
I think the general line you hear is funding's getting tougher. However, if I look at now on the study section membership, if I look at where the grants are going, actually pharmacy faculty are getting larger share than before. And I think in part thanks to you trying to, I remember 10 years ago you were pushing to have more pharmaceutical faculties on study sections. And I think now finally it's happening. So yes, funding is always going to be tough, but I actually think it's much better now for pharmacy than it was 10 years ago.
And how about, let's see, your own interactions? I know you lecture widely and internationally, and have you found particular areas that are, where you really have in sync in terms of ideas and interactions outside of the U.S.?
Just back from a trip to Korea and to Taiwan. I think in the other countries, the focus is more on drug product. So I think you see more of the drug delivery. It's more focused for them, which is fine for now, I think. However, at some point we have to go back and make sure that we're getting the targets we want. So the biology is what I see still not, in those countries, they're still not yet integrated as well as you think should be in harmony with each other.
Mm-hmm. What's the advice you give your new students in terms of I know work hard, get a lot of papers out and all that kind of stuff, but in terms of life, in their career, what are you telling them now?
It's actually different now than 10 years ago. I really ask them to look inside themselves what they really want to do and don't follow just the path that everyone else thinks you should do, because ultimately there's more than just success in Korea.
Mm-hmm. And are they following that advice, you think?
Well, I think people choose what they want to hear. Mm-hmm. So I say what I say, and they'll choose what they think is right for them.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to return, we're close to the end, but I'd like to return because I think it's very perceptive and definitely true. The influence that the pharmaceutical sciences have had over the last decade or 20 years, and you've been a strong contributor, has really changed the perspective of what we can influence. And your point was that it's in development and not so much in discovery. But do you think it's both, or am I misinterpreting what you're saying?
Sorry, that's not what I meant. I think drug discovery has always been the strength of our discipline. I think the time, however, has come to recognize there's a Grand Canyon between drug discovery and the proof of concept in clinical arena. Well, take for example, most royalties are gained, for academic institutions. Most royalties are gained from having a molecule the drug company bought and make it work. But then 95% of those drugs they bought do not work. Why not? Why is it not 20% success rate? Why is it only 5%? So if we look hard at that whole paradigm and look at where the weakest link is, it's always between phase 1 through phase 2. And I gave you the example, maybe I didn't articulate very well.
You did.
How you can take a perfectly great drug and kill it by following the paradigm that everyone believes should work. And this is what I mean by, rules of man or rules of nature. And I think I think the next stage for pharmaceutical scientists to make a big impact is work on this part of development. Try to unravel the science behind why it worked and why it failed. So once we can learn the rules of engagement there, then hopefully we can help to push the success rate up beyond 5%. Right. So I'm not, belittling drug discovery. I just think now the time has come to the point where we learn from our mistakes
No, I agree with you, and I didn't mean to imply that belittle drug discovery either.
Right.
But I think what you've said is that we've become the rate-limiting step in drug development.
It's
the
not
kinds of things that we can bring to the table.
It's not us. I think it's the way things are structured. Because if you look at the whole culture in drug development, it's always been, you discover the drug, you hand it over, the clinical team takes over. So we assume they have the knowledge to do the best that they can to make a success. But that's a big assumption because, in fact, my clinical colleagues will agree with me. They wouldn't know what we're doing when we put the two-compartment model up there, because they hate to see equations. They're biologists typically. They're not mathematicians. So they don't think the same way. If they're biologists, they don't think quantitatively usually, and they don't worry about delivering how much and how long. But those questions are really what we're trained to do, and we train our students to do. So I don't think we're the rate-limiting step.
No,
I think
we address the rate-limiting. What we do addresses the rate-limiting steps in drug development.
Yes,
which is sort of stopped. All these molecules came up together, and you ran them through the screen, and they work. And now you have to actually get them in man and work. That's what we do.
That's what we do. And I think what would be really great for our profession is to keep saying this out there and tell them, well, we can help you to solve this problem. Just give us a chance. Right. Put us at a level playing field. We're at the table at the same